Financial class or financial stewardship. My name is Duke Talandier Holmes. Today, hopefully, we're going to go over what can we do. That's the question I get asked a lot, right? Just because I have, my head's in finance, etc. It's like during these times, as life goes on, what's possible with 2026 and going forward, all right? But at the end of the day, we are believers. And the thought is our trust should not be in the things that we can do, but in the Lord in all things, right? So that's the preface for all of this. Again, nothing is outside of God's control, and so we're depending on Him to be able to do anything. Next slide, please. Next slide. All right, so here's my disclaimer. As I am standing here before you today, I am not representing any firm or financial institution. I am sharing this only as a brother, as a volunteer, and this is going to be general financial information. This is not specific financial advice, all right? Next slide. So this is what we're talking about today. This is our agenda. What we're looking at the forefront is the global paradigm shift. Where are we now? Where are we going to be in the next 10 years or so, right? With that, we're going to look at the common stress signals that tell us that, hey, things are changing. Something's happening right now, right? We all can feel it, but it's another seeing it on paper, right? Seeing it in a presentation or in data points, right? Where it's like, what are we going through? Has it been done before? Has it been seen before? Is this something that I'm just feeling? Is it unique to me? Or is this something that we as a society go through? Okay, well, we just went down, but I'll keep going. So the next thing we're going to be talking about, what is coming? What is the next thing? We have the old system that's going away. We have the new system that's coming in. What's all this new stuff? What is the world going to look like in 10, 20 years? It's just like the advent of computers, right? Where before computers, we weren't really working as fast, as capable as we are today, right? You're doing things on paper. Now, boom, we're in computer age. We do everything on the computer. We send emails rapidly back and forth, AOL, switching to Google, right? All that transition happened within like 10 years, right? Beginning to where we are now, from BlackBerry with all the buttons to everybody has a phone with glass on it, right? And then last but not least, what we're focused on today is what can we do now, given our current environment, given our current day, given our current age. Next slide. All right, so as far as the global paradigm shift is concerned, it's going to be broken into three parts. We have this orange section right here, which is that historical old system, right? And the stressors that are there that are telling us that, hey, we're going through this change. Part of that is bank failures, housing bubbles, wealth redistribution, and warfare, right? These are all signals that say, hey, we're going through this change. Something's happening, right? Can these things happen outside of a change? Yes, they can, right? You can have war outside of a global economic change. You can have that. But when all of these things start to overlap, something's happening, right? As far as the new thing, this is the technological overlap, right? Where you have the old system that's changing as far as the geopolitical, social, economic, and then last but not least, technology, right? When all of these things start to change at once, we're going through a change in an era. So we're looking at what's coming in, that green section. It's AI, central banking digital currencies, energy, and biotech. And last but not least is going to be what we talk about as far as strategy is concerned. All right, next slide. So, is it doing that automatically? Okay. So historical global paradigm shift, I think the biggest word here is historical, right? We're going to talk about what has happened in history that is mirroring today. A lot of people are like, hey, in Rome, right? We're kind of like in the Roman fall. Who's heard that, right? Yeah, so it's like we're paralleling Rome, where Rome is collapsing. It's just like the U.S. collapsing. Maybe, that's a pattern, right? That's a pattern that someone recognized and said, hey, this is very similar to what's happening then. It's what's happening now, right? But there's other patterns in history that kind of inform where we're at today. You can go online. A lot of this stuff is present. Pastor Jesse sends out a lot of information on YouTube. Some of this is here, some of it's not, all right? So, but this is gonna be on a global scale. That's that second word, right? A lot of the change that's happened usually is on a national scale. We're experiencing global change now, where we all feel it together as an entire world. And then paradigm shift, it's the way we're thinking, the way we're operating, the way we're navigating our world, how we exist in our world. That's what's shifting. All right, next slide. So this typically is without the technology part, but it's like players change, but the game still remains the same. But in this context, the players and the technology, they change, but the game still remains the same. I like to use an analogy, it's like football, right? At the beginning of football, you have helmets that have single bars, right? And you have this torn up football. Everybody's just going out in their underwear, jock straps, et cetera, and just running out on the field, doing what they need to do. As time passes, 50 years later, right, helmets are different, right? There's multiple bars. There's 6, 7, 12 bars on face masks, right? Helmets have padding on the outside to protect the brain, right? Athletes train differently, right, than the athletes that just started out. They have, they're running on treadmills, measuring their air intake, how fast their muscles trigger, et cetera, right? All of these changes happen over time. So as our society, right? So when we're looking at these changes over time, it's the same thing. Society exists, it keeps going, but God remains the same, right? And our existence inside of society remains the same. What changes is us as people, our level of knowledge and how we operate in it, and then the technology that we have, right? Next slide. So this is going to be that historical look. I know the graph is kind of busy, but we're looking at all the changes from 1776, from when we had independence from Great Britain, till about now. And we're trying to pinpoint, hey, are these changes similar to where we're at now? And so about every 80 years or so, there's another change, there's another trough. That red area on this graph is that political change, it's that economic change, it's that technological change, right? When we're looking at the Revolutionary War, we're looking at independence from Britain, right? And in that, there's a whole leadership change as far as politically. We're going from monarch to a representative democracy. We're going from being owned by another nation to having self-governorship, right? Money changes, what's it called? And then technology is also changing in that phase really rapidly. Going over to the industrial shift in the Civil War. This is a war fought over means of production, right? When it comes down to, is this gonna be an industrial society or an agricultural society? Is it gonna be slave labor, or is it gonna be means of production through machinery, right? We also have the inclusion of interchangeable parts. That's the technology that really shot this off. So the Industrial Revolution is one of like the key technological changes that just like landmark rapid change. Where we're at today, as far as AI, is supposed to be the Industrial Revolution times 10 or times 100, because the level of growth is ridiculous, right? We see it every day in our usual life, where people are getting laid off right now because of AI, right? And then the inclusion of AI in your everyday life is already there. If you've been to the doctor, has anybody been to the doctor recently? Well, you don't need to raise your hands on that. But if you've been to the doctor recently, they'll ask you a question. They'll say, hey, can I record this using my AI? Can I use my phone to record it? And you can say yes or no. But everybody's adapting in some way, shape, or form using ChatGPT or, what's it called? Google's version of it, or Copilot, Microsoft's version of it, right? We're experiencing those changes on a rapid level. And so right after that, after the Civil War period, you have the Great Depression and World War II. I'm not gonna go into all the history for you history buffs out there. It's fantastic, all of this. Each one of these can have a whole hour-long session, maybe even more. But the biggest thing is to note the changes, right? In the Great Depression and World War II, one of the key things in this was the acquisition of gold from the people, where the Fed actually took in people's gold and made it illegal to possess gold for a little bit, right? from 1929 to like 1970. Don't quote me on that, but it's there, right? And so what was happening there was a distribution of wealth, right? They needed to reprice that gold, right? Hold on to that physical asset and then give people out dollars and say, hey, this is what this dollar is worth now. Beyond that, you had World War II, and then, as you know, the Great Depression, where things were really bad. So in between all of these, there's high points, right? So you have the low points and you have the high points. Right now, we're in that low point. There's a lot of political unrest. There's war happening. We don't know what tomorrow is going to look like. It doesn't feel good. But 20 years ago, we were relaxed and really not thinking about these things. It's a cyclical pattern. It's a cyclical pattern. Next 30 years, we should be, growing, going back to the top. Next slide. This is what it looks like as far as that 80-year period is concerned. Again, it's in cycles, up, down, up, down. We have 20 years of high where it's like climbing to get to that peak, right, where things are good. And then you have the awakening where everything is just great. Technology is settled. We all understand how society works. People are making a lot of money, living life like kings and queens, little kings and queens, right? And then next 20 years is unraveling, right, where things start to fall apart, right? For us, it would be since 2008 or so, right, when you're seeing the, what's it called, the home market collapse, right, and you're seeing banks that are too big to fail getting bailed out, and COVID, and Silicon Valley Bank going under. All these things are these signals that, hey, we're in this unraveling period. Next 20 years is that crisis, right? It's what we may be going through, right? Next slide. But again, I think the most important part about all this is it's based off of history, it's based off of cycles, and it's something that we can see, we can project. These aren't my graphs, I didn't create these, right? There's, what's it called? What are you going to, I messed up with this word. Sociologists that look at these things and determine, hey, this is what we're seeing in our society. All right, so this is what we're looking at, a small snippet of this giant picture. We're exiting out of an old system, entering into a new system, all right? And we're right in the middle of that. Next slide. So in the middle of that, you see that little monster there? This was a coin that was turned by Antonio Gramsci. The quote on it, he's a Marxist philosopher, et cetera, right? But the quote on it is, the old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born. Now is the time of monsters. What I want to point out about this middle piece, where we are right now, that's where all the chaos happens, right? That's where it seems like everything is just out of control. But again, cycles, it won't be out of control forever, right? Because the Lord has his way. It's one of those things where we go through these normative processes and we can step back and look at them and say, okay, this is what's happening. That's a part of the reason why I'm even bringing this up, just so you know, hey, we're gonna go through something. It's not like everything just remains the same, right? And we don't wanna get stuck in the normal process. That Horizon 1, business as usual, that's changing. Things aren't business as usual anymore. That's why people are losing their jobs. That's why AI is coming. You have to get smarter. You have to understand the world you're going to be living in. It's just like somebody now not understanding how to use a computer. It's very hard to live today without knowing how to use a computer. It will be very hard to live without knowing how AI works at minimal, right? If you want to resist it, that's fine, but it's going to be difficult, right? Because that's the world you're going to live in. Horizon 3, that's the emerging future. That's what's coming, right? Overwhelmingly, that's what will remain, right? And then the disruptive innovation, as you can see, that's kind of going up. What that is all the new things that are coming in, right? And we have to get used to it. And once we do, then it starts going down, right? That's the, what's it called? Normative process, right? Where it's like, at first, it's we don't really understand it. Once it hits that peak, we're like, okay, now it's adapted to society and it becomes a part of that emerging future, right? But that's the disruption that creates that tension in the middle. Next slide. Okay, so old system stressors, again, just want to reiterate this. What we're seeing, or what the signs are, the signals saying, hey, something's happening, is when they start stacking up. Not when it's just one individually. When they start stacking up is when it's like, hey, a change is happening. This, with technological innovation, signals that. So we're looking at bank failures. 2023 was the last one, right? You have 3 banks, I think number 16, number 8, and I forgot the last one, but you had Silicon Valley Bank, you had First Republic Bank, and there was one more that is slipping my mind right now. But that's happening. Housing bubbles, that's speculative right now. Wealth redistribution, arguably 2022 was the last time mass wealth redistribution happened. What happened there? Well, COVID. What happened during COVID? Well, people got, not handouts, but checks from the government saying, hey, we're gonna hold you over. Well, that's fine, that's great. People are like, yes, I get $2,000, yes, I get $5,000, whatever amount they got, right? But what happens if you just give money away, who pays for that, right? That's why we have inflation now. That's why it's so high, right? We're paying for that in our taxes. We're paying for that in our everyday life now, right? Of course, it felt great having that bailout initially, but we pay for it in the long run. And last but not least is warfare, ups and downs. We're looking at society now saying, hey, is this a war? Is that a war? Talking about Venezuela now. Just went through Israel and, not Palestine, oh my gosh. Well, Israel and then Ukraine at the last one. So, next slide. Again, this is just gonna be the historical timeline. I'm not going into this. I just want it to be up on the board for record, et cetera. But it's starting in 1863, and then from the timeline from there is every 80 years. This is the things that happen in between. If you were to sit there and map this, you would see how that correlates with the curves, all right? But 2023, there's that banking crisis, and then the COVID financial policy. Those two are solid. The other ones are questionable as far as the housing bubble and warfare are concerned. So I didn't put them in there. Next slide. All right, so new system. What is coming? What's on the horizon, right? We have AI, as everybody is kind of already feeling. We have central banking digital currencies, right? And all that is everything is going to be digitized, right? Everything is going to be digitized. The positive thing, actually we can just go to the next slide. Next slide, Tisha. Frozen? Okay, good deal, thank you. So, as far as AI is concerned, we'll start there. Again, we're looking at it as the new industrial revolution, or the industrial revolution on steroids, right? What it's doing is it's automating a lot of our manual processes, right? So where you have 20 people doing one job, what's gonna happen is employers are gonna be firing people down to like 5 people. Why? Because now those 5 people are able to do the job of 20 people through those automated processes. It's just like going from everybody writing on paper to computers. Now we're going from computers to artificial intelligence. You can do more with less. They're not gonna pay you more for it though, right? They're not gonna pay you more for it. But they're gonna say, hey, we can use these 5 people to accomplish what a team of 20 was able to do. That does not mean that everybody's gonna lose their job. What it means is the folks that are better at means of production keep their job, and the folks that adapt also keep their jobs, right? In the middle, data dominance, that's something else coming down the pipeline. Everything that we do is a data point now. When you go online and you search something, it's a data point somewhere, right? How we operate and live our lives is gonna be data driven, right? When you go on ChatGPT and you ask it something, well, that's data driving your life. Because you're looking at the internet, all these data points, and they're all funneled in, telling you this is what we've compiled. And you take that, you absorb that, and you say, this is what I'm gonna do based off of the information I've been given, based off the computer's data. Now, this is a good thing in the sense that we can resource all of these things around us, but it's a bad thing depending on what our data source is and who controls it, right? When we're looking at our data source, we're looking at, is it dirty data? Is it just pulled from everywhere, right? As far as like, for example, would be suicide, right? Where kids are going online on ChatGPT asking it a whole bunch of questions about what drugs to take, about how should I cope with life, et cetera, and it gives them negative things. Why? Because there's a lot of negative things on the internet. That's what we call dirty data. It wasn't cleaned, right? But on the same side, you can ask it, how do I fix my plumbing? And it'll walk you through step by step. So there's pros and cons with this. Next thing, labor disruption. As I kind of already stated, it's one of those things where AI is coming. It's coming to change our society as a whole, and it's one of those things where you want to understand it at minimum, right? Because it's going to change the way we work, just like a computer does. Central banking digital currencies. So what is a central banking digital currency? The biggest thing is they are all programmable, right? And so when we're talking about Bitcoin, when we're talking about stablecoin, we're talking about programs that have value. So again, it's like the dollar. Why does the dollar have value? Because they say it can. Because they say the dollar has value. So why can't we do that with a program? Why can't I type in a program that produces 100x of whatever, right? And then we say, oh, this has value. It's the same thing. That's the easiest way to understand it, wrap your brain around it, where they're creating programs that create numbers, right, that may be fixed, right, with like Bitcoin. It has an exact number that it has as far as max is concerned, right? So it creates the principle of scarcity, right? Some don't. Some go on forever. You can have as many as you want, but those won't be valuable, right? Scarcity creates the value. Same thing with the dollar. The more money we print, the less value it has. It's worthless. So if you have a fixed number of something, you can create value behind it, saying this is how we do currency now because we say so. So with the central banking digital currencies, it's a programmable currency, right? Now there's different kinds, but the one that the US is going to be using right now is called stablecoin, right? It's pinned to a dollar, right? But we'll see how this environment transforms over the next few years, right? Because we don't know what's going to come out on top. Is it Ethereum? Is it stablecoin? Is it Bitcoin? They're all different in their function and how they're written as far as their code. And that's where it gets into like, well, which one? We're figuring it out, or the world's figuring it out now. Traceable. So everything you do is now traceable. I put that fingerprint up there because that's your digital ID that's being tracked in all these purchases, right? And that's why the banks want to do this, because everything you do is no longer cash where I can go and hand you $1 and no one knows that this just happened. No, the blockchain or how it's being tracked online is going to leave a digital footprint or digital fingerprint saying, hey, this was traded for this and that was traded for this, to the nth degree. Everything is going to be tracked, and that goes into the last thing where it's control and surveillance risk. A lot of folks think that this is a control ploy. I'm part of that, where if you're able to monitor it, you're able to control it, you're able to watch it, right? Everything we do will have a social score attached to it or have some kind of data point attached to it informing some entity on what we've done, right? And the positives of this, it's fast, it's instant. We can always have our money on us. You can use DNA, you can use your fingerprint to buy things and sell things, right? That might not be a positive to us, right? Because we're talking about the mark of the beast. We're talking about not being able to buy and sell because of our beliefs or because the government just says you can't buy and sell, right? And then we have no measure outside of these digital means to do so. Whereas before it used to be gold and dollars, right? But the government has taken our gold before. Can they take our dollars? Can they take our physical assets? Maybe, right? That goes back into that Carl Schwab thing. If you haven't seen it, you guys should check it out. But that was the Global Economic Summit with Carl Schwab. Forgot what it was called, but it was like you cannot, or You will own nothing and be happy, right? It's madness. Next slide. All right, so energy, that's also something that's changing, and we're almost done, y'all. So we're gonna be switching gears into what can we do very shortly. But with this, energy is changing. We're really focused on nuclear right now, nuclear energy, how that can be harnessed, how that can change the world, how that can be something that's renewable as well. EV, or electric vehicle scale / batteries, right? That's something that's really taking over as far as those top companies are concerned, Google, Facebook, or Meta, and was Tesla, right? Everybody's building giant, what's it called? Servers, everybody's building giant solar plants, right? To harness AI, to create energy, right? And they're spending billions of dollars to do so, right? Because everybody wants to be the first in this market. Now, with that being said, right, the goal is biotech. The goal is biotech for all these people. They want to live a longer life. They want to live in a digital space. They want to live forever. And a means to do that in their minds is biotechnology, right? If I can implant my brain into a computer and I can live there, then I will be infinite. I will live forever, right? That's the grand idea. That's transcendence on a worldly scale, right? We don't believe that. Transcendence comes vertically. We're going to live with Christ, right? It's not about living here as long as we can. This is not the end goal for us. Now, we do need to understand the mindset, right? And that's where that gene editing comes in, right? The first kind of big gene editing that we've heard about is like CRISPR and Dolly, right? The little lamb that was the clone, right, that was created. But CRISPR is how gene editing is done now, where they splice a section out, take out the undesirable trait in the gene, and they put in their own desirable trait in that gene. And then they replicate that gene over and over in a petri dish, and they produce whatever organ or whatever thing they wanted to produce out of it, right? That's the beginnings of gene editing. Now, it goes to the extent of like where they're putting rats and they're putting ears on rats and they're trying to reproduce human body parts, right? That's already happening, right? Eventually, you want to be able to replace arms, want to be able to replace legs, and it goes overboard when they're starting to talk about, hey, what if I can, be a superhuman, or what if I can have an extra tail, or all these other things. But they're all possibilities. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but that's what gene editing allows for. Now, that's not the stated goal. The stated goal is to help people, right? Same thing with Neuralink technology with Elon Musk, right? And that gets into the synthetic biology, right? Where putting those microchips and transponders in people's heads to allow them to, what do you want to call it? Have a new lease on life, or have things that they weren't able to have before, like a quadriplegic, being able to have synapses that move motorized arms, right? Those are those beautiful things where you're like, yeah, man, that's really awesome. But again, if you remember what the end state is to live forever. It's not, hey, we're doing all of these things out of a philanthropic heart. It's, hey, I want my kids to live forever. I want to have anti-aging devices in my house, etc. But these are the things that are coming. There's a lot of positives with everything up here, right? But there's also a lot of scary things. The thing is just to know about it and to know where you stand with it based off of the biblical standard. That's going to be where we should be at, because eventually it's going to be like, make a choice. We're already in that now. Well, where do you stand on trans rights, right? What is trans rights? I thought it was a boy and a girl. Well, now there's a whole nother section that's being created in the midst of that. Okay, right? We're being forced to accept that there's a whole new type of person in the middle of it. Biotech, right? Well, they're creating the parts for that. It's not too long until they'll be functional, right? Next slide. All right, so this is the part that we're focused on. It's what can we do? Knowing all this information, what are we able to do at this moment in time? What has God graced us to be able to do with all that we have, right? How can we be good stewards? Next slide. PJ, I don't think that clock's right, by the way. So, as far as what we're focusing on, first and foremost, at the very top, is our faith, right? This is going to give us clarity as we go through these times, as we start to understand these cycles. It's being clear on what we need to do. And at the root of everything, it's focusing on the Lord. It's getting to know him. It's staying rooted to our body. And that directly bleeds into that second one, which is family, right? PJ's already talked on this one, but I'm going to harp on it again, which is family is not just your nuclear family. It's also going to be the body of believers, right? It's when we go through these times, who can we look to? Who can we fellowship with? It's really going to be about being with like-minded people, right? Because your neighbor may be cool, but if he's like, man, I'm so excited to get my robot dog, and you're like, man, I don't know about the robot dog, right? Or, hey, I'm going to get a new arm. Like, don't you have 2 arms? Yeah, a third is just cool. You're going to be like, I'm not sure I'm going to be hanging around this person or trying to, be united with this person, right? And that's where you will lean to your fellow believers, right? The folks that are going to be starting to talk about bartering and stuff with you, if you're into that, right? Not necessarily, hey, we should put everything on digital currency. I think it's great. And then last but not least, what I'm here today to talk about is just the finance portion of it. There's also fitness in here as well. You gotta be able to move and shake whenever, things happen. But preparation, this is all this is about. It's just preparation. It's something that is a bonus. It's not the key. It's not the main objective. Main objective is Christ. This is how we can fuel the other 2 things, right? Spending time with family, being able to help another person, right? If your finances aren't in order, you're not able to really help that much with your time, with your efforts, right? And then ultimately, spending time in the Word, right? If you're worried about things on the horizontal plane, what's the chances that you're really going to be spending more time vertically? It's a good thing if you're that type of person where you're like, hey, I can't live, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, but I'm focused on the Lord. Amen. The Lord's going to see you through. But for a lot of people, they get distracted. Next slide. Just a few more now. So overall, this is the financial ladder, or what we want to do, right? Just in a general sense. You want to have cash. You want to be liquid. Have something at your ready. Be able to use it for emergencies. Typically, it's like 6 to 12 months as far as like your cash. And what I mean by 6 to 12 months is based off of your salary, or it's based off of your expenses. 6 to 12 months. So if it costs you $3,000 a month to live, times 6, you're looking at 18, right? $18,000, right? Times 12, you're looking at 36, right? So that's how that works. So everybody's expenses are different. Debt reduction, you don't want to be in debt to anybody. You don't want the government, the IRS, to seize what you have, because they can reach into your pockets, right? If you have it liquid, maybe not. But if everything you have is in a bank, it's important that you are paying your debt. Somebody in this building might have had their assets seized before, or their paycheck docked. Diversification is number 3. What you're looking at is not putting all your eggs in one basket. You guys have heard me say this time and time again at this point. You don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? All of this is part of that diversification. This whole thing is part of diversification. Number 4 is real assets. You have a house up there, because that's one of the very common real assets. There's other real assets out there. Gold is another one of them. But things that retain value, part of the real assets is like life-saving measures such as water, right? Such as food. These are also real assets. They may not hold value right now, but if anything ever happens, if there's ever a war here, those things will be very expensive. And you'll be like, whoa, a candy bar, $50? Yes, it's possible. You go over to a war-torn nation, how many candy bars you see out there, right? very scarce. Equities, this is ownership in companies, et cetera. This is what you're looking at as far as the stock market, your 401ks, your IRA, right? Having value inside of that. This is just another means of diversification. What we're really going to talk about right now is metals and crypto, right? That's what I'm going to focus on. And then last but not least, land. If you have land, that's fantastic. That's another real asset. You can cultivate the means of production through land, right? It's one of the best assets to have because you don't need to work for somebody. You can plant food, you can eat food, right? You can live on it, right? You can have cows, horses. It's your workplace, ultimately. And you can have other people live there. You can charge them rent. You're a landlord. It's your means of production. It's a fantastic thing to have land. Next slide. So we got like 4 more slides or so, and then we'll close it down. But I have conversations about gold all the time, about silver all the time. Everybody has questions on like, how do I do it? How do I purchase it? Where do I store it? PJ sent out something on Tucker Carlson, and one of the biggest gold wholesalers in North America, or maybe the world. Definitely check that out for more information, right, to understand that a little bit more. This is just going to be a quick summation, quick down and dirty for this. Now, there's a few different ways you can own gold. The first one is the oldest form, which is physical. You have it, you hold it, and you own it. It's yours, right? No one can take that away from you. Well, the government can try, right? But you can go hide it, right? You don't have to comply when that happens. Now, I'm not saying fight against your government, but in 1929, they did that. They were like, hey, it's illegal to hold gold. So what forms do they come in? I'm going to show you a picture on the next slide, not right now, of a gold coin and a silver coin, just so you can see what they look like. But 1 ounce is standard, and then you have 1/4 of an ounce and 1/10 of an ounce. Those are going to be different prices because they're less gold, right? Jewelry is another way to have gold. Now, it's probably the worst way. Why? Because the markups on it, right? Because of the craftsmanship around it. But when you need the money from some jewelry, they're going to look at you and say, well, the gold is 2 ounces, so here's the market price. But I paid, another $2,000 on top of this for this. Well, we don't really care about the artistry. We just care about what the weight of that gold is, all right? So it's going to be based off of the spot price or what that gold actually is worth, not based off the artistry. So don't think, oh, I'm going to go out and buy a whole bunch of gold jewelry. That's going to be just as good. You're going to pay more for less, right? And then storage is a huge thing where it's like, where do I put it? Do I just, hide it under my mattress? Do I put it in the bank? And so there's pros and cons with each. As far as storage, home storage, you have it. It's in your possession. You can easily go get it. You can put it into a safe if you want to. You can dig it in the ground. Gold doesn't rust, right? It keeps. Gold does melt as far as hot fires are concerned, but you'll still keep 90% of the value, as I learned from the video pretty recently. Another option is the bank. Now with this, if there's a bank seizure, you might not have your assets, right? And they do not insure this. You have to purchase additional insurance, right? So you can have it in the bank. Someone robs the bank, robs your gold, you're not getting it back unless you have insurance on it. You have to pay for that, right? So just note, the bank is not just the safest place in the world. Banks do go under. Next, vaulting. This is paying for gold storage services, right? There are companies that do this, that will store your gold and have it fully insured. This is typically if you have larger amounts of gold, right? And you just don't want the risk of having it at home. But again, this is where you kind of think and use what you know as like, hey, where should I store my gold? That's number 2, which is allocated storage, right? Where you're giving it to someone else. You own it, but it's not at your house. It's not at your house. So if something happens, it's not right there for you to get it, right? And that's the risk with that. You might not be able to make it down the road to go to this store, or they might close their doors and you can't access it. So it's definitely more secure, but access is way down. And then number 3, paper and financial gold. You don't physically hold it, right? You own it in name, right? You own it in the chart. When you see your money go up and down, your value is going up and down. Typically it's in like London and it's in Africa, right? They call it paper gold, right? You can go online, invest in ETFs, mutual funds, or the mining companies, right, which is the most risky of them all. And you can invest in gold. But if something were to happen and you need to pull that money out, you might not be able to get it that fast, right? There's other players that are larger than you that if they want their gold back, they're going to get it back first. They have priority. Next slide. So what does gold look like today? There's 2 different coins up here. This was November 7th. I do have updated pricing on it now, but it was $50.50 for the silver round head. And that was $50 for some silver, right? One coin about this big, $50. That gold, $4,090, smaller, right? And that's 1 ounce. If you want, 1/10 of an ounce, you just divide it by 10, it's gonna be about $409, right? That's how you do the math on that. Now, when you buy it from a store, which I was in a store for this, there's gonna be a markup price on it, right? And that's the cost of exchanging the gold, right? The friction that they have to face in taking large amounts of gold, giving cash constantly throughout the day. You can also buy these online. The biggest thing, again, from the video is don't buy commemorative coins, etc. Buy it for the actual value of the gold. You can look up the spot price online. You can call around to other stores and figure out what should I be paying for this amount of gold. Don't buy, hey, this is Australian kangaroo coin of 2018, it's $5,000, man, this is a deal, it's gonna be worth so much in the next 10 years. It may, but chances are it won't. All right, next, click over. Oh, it didn't even put I had updated prices on there, but no, it didn't take, the PowerPoint didn't take. But this is some things that are on the horizon now. Again, digital gold, right? What this is a 1-for-1. You own the gold, it's being held by somebody else, and you can actively trade it on like what's it called? A digital platform, right? And so it's really fast, rapid trading as far as gold is concerned, but again, it's digital. You don't actually hold it, right? Something can happen with this. You're trusting that company is gonna be there. Can they fold and take your gold? Yep, all right. Number 2, gold in retirement accounts. So you got the ETFs, you got the mutual funds, et cetera, that we just discussed, but you also have this thing called self-directed, right? Again, I got this from a video that was sent to me, right? What is self-directed? Well, there are certain companies that have IRAs that you can have physical gold in. Now, when you have this under your IRA, which anybody can do, you just have to go to the company that does this, right? They will allow for you to have physical gold. What does that look like? Typically, it's not you holding it. You can't hold this gold in your IRA. So it's getting one of those vaulting companies to do it for you, where you would purchase the gold, have it sent to this vaulting company, and they would hold it, and it's in your IRA as a portion of that IRA. It's a little bit more complicated, but that's a possibility. If you are interested in that, type in self-directed IRA. Gold, or also real estate. You can also buy portions of real estate through this. This is where you start talking about going deeper into the financial world, but I'm pressed for time at this point, but we're definitely gonna have this throughout the year as far as like conversations. Probably not gonna do as much presenting, but just know that if you're interested in having a conversation on this, it'll be available. The last 3 or the last 4 are more advanced ways to deal with gold. Who's doing offshore gold? Those people that own a lot of it. Same thing with gold futures, gold option. That's more speculative. You're betting for or against gold. And then tokenized gold, again, that's what's coming. All right, next slide. Crypto, this is, I think, we got 2 more slides and we're done. I just wanted to point this out. As far as owning crypto, there's 2 major ways to own it. One is in cold storage. This is you hold the keys. It's just like, say for instance, this is a USB, or this is a hard drive. I could have all my crypto on my phone or on my USB, and I carry that around with me. The benefit is security. The benefit is security. No one can just take that from you digitally, right? Because it's not plugged into the internet. They can take it from you physically, right? If they know about it. And the same thing with gold too. Don't tell everybody you have mass amounts of gold or mass amounts of crypto. That's just very unwise because people do steal. We are sinners. Number 2 is exchange wallets. They hold the keys. This is things like Bitcoin, right? If you go online, you buy a whole bunch of, or not Bitcoin, Coinbase, right? You buy some Bitcoin, you buy some Ethereum. They hold those physical keys to your assets. Higher risk because people can go in there and hack, right? And take your accounts, et cetera. The least amount of risk is going to be that cold storage, right? And also, cold storage takes it out of monitoring, right? Takes it out of the system. It's just like owning physical gold. Well, I lost it, right? Where'd it go? Custodian exchange wallets, they're still tracking it. Everything's being tracked. If I take some gold, I planted it under a tree somewhere, and I tell the government I lost it, I lost it. There's no, oh, well, you're lying and we're gonna charge you. No, I don't have it anymore, unfortunately, right? 3, stablecoin. Again, this is important because this is what the government is talking about. The volatility of cryptocurrency is there, it's wild. And so in the midst of that, the government is presenting stablecoin where it's attached to a dollar. It's less risky than cryptocurrencies at their base. And that's the whole thing. They're still working on this. It's not fully understood yet, but it's definitely being pushed, right? Next slide. Okay, so in closing, right? Our objective is always to anchor our faith in Christ as we go through these things. The reason why I even talked about it today is so we understand what's happening, right? This is not an isolated incident. This is not just you saying, oh, my spidey senses are kicking in. It's a thing of this happens in history. It is unique in the way the players and the technology are concerned. This is the first time AI. This is the first time us going through this. But as far as change is concerned, change has happened before. Don't freak out, right? God is in control, right? And in that, there's still things that you can take to be a wise steward with what you have, right? Get prepared. Again, it's not just financially, it's also with your fitness, and it's also with measures of health all around the table, right? Last but not least, Proverbs 21:20. I'm going to butcher this because I don't have it with me. But a wise man stores up oil and grain for times of calamity, right? Oh, nice, thank you. And a fool man spendeth it up, right? These are principles, biblical principles, to be wise, to be a good steward about things, all right? Last slide. Should be the last slide. No. It's all good. But thank you guys for your time. Hopefully this was insightful, or at least brought back up some things that you were thinking about or cemented it for you. Oh no. Let's see if we can get this slide back up. All right, so the reason why this last slide is semi-important is because it's gonna be what we're gonna be doing for 2026. I probably won't be coming up presenting as much, right? The reason being is going over the basics here, can't really go deep into individual subjects. So if you're doing small groups, either on Zoom or in person, just seeing interest levels for this, right? We're not expecting like 20 people to come out or anything like that, maybe 5. It's who's interested in what, Jackie passed out some paper before on just subjects that we can talk about. This is going to be more of a conversation than a presentation, right? And it's if you want to understand anything in the financial world or understand what's going on in society, there's tons of stuff out there. Like, for instance, I think one for church or for people that give is charitable donations through donor advised funds. Long story short, it's a way to give and then save money on taxes while you're doing it for people that do give already, right? But you won't know about these things unless you have conversations about them, right? As far as how to invest, real estate, et cetera. We're just gonna have conversations on it and get educated on these things throughout the year. So up here, you can email faithfamilyfreedomfinances@gmail.com or jacquelinesready@gmail.com. This last piece down here, this QR code, if you scan that, right, and this will be online, if you scan it, it will bring up a phone number. You can call or text that phone number. I recommend texting. That will reach out to Jackie, right? And we're gonna be coordinating those classes and stuff coming in January. So that is what we have. Thank you guys for your time. Sorry I went a little over. Let's see how much. Oh, no, I nailed it. All right, good deal. Like I said, that clock is wrong, but yeah.
We're gonna do some Q&A. So
all right, yeah,
keep
yeah.
that mic on.
All right.
I'll take this mic and I'm going to. Symposium that's worth its weight in the subject, it should produce questions, particularly if you don't know. So what I want to kind of do is just start with a theological premise that affirms something that the slides had already asserted, and that is these cycles of crisis. That's a biblical concept, by the way. So what you're looking at in this money management class, if you don't know, are one of the three of the four horsemen of the apocalypse paradigms. If you don't know that, you need to learn it. I've tried to teach it over this year, and some people listen to me, a lot of people don't. But your Lord already talked about it. He talked about it in Revelation 6, the white horse, the red horse, the black horse, and the pale horse. How many of you guys been listening to me? And I'm telling you, you got to know this, because if you and I are looking at the world through human lenses and we don't have a presuppositional foundation for what we're looking at, we can't be sure that we're dealing with reality. But we are. And so even now, the way Duke is laying out the crisis narrative and all of those components, I really would want to go through every one of them. Every slide is really rich. But you can go back and listen to it. I want to simply search some things that you may have to write down, because I didn't want to do a PowerPoint, but as I was watching the presentation, I said, let me do this. So there are 7 major resets that your Bible predicts. 7 major resets. I've talked to you about this before, but I want to get you in a frame of mind to understand that we are in the beginning phases of the 7th reset. We are in the beginning phases of the 7 resets. The first reset was the fall. That's Genesis 1 through 3. The second reset was the flood. That's Genesis 6 through 9. The first reset was the fall. The second reset was the flood. The third reset was the Tower of Babel coming down, for which then God sent all of the human species across the globe. He reestablished the sort of geopolitical chaos necessary for him to manage his plan of redemption. So the first one is the fall, second one is the flood, third one is the Tower of Babel. The fourth reset was the Egyptian Exodus. The Egyptian Exodus, that was a critical reset, and each one of these resets can be described as a radical act of sovereignty changing things. That's what a reset is. A radical act of sovereignty changing things. So we definitely have benefited from Scripture giving us what we call a teleological view, a telescope view of the future. Linear, progressive, theologically accurate view of the future. The next reset is what we call the Babylonian captivity. That was a radical reset. It reshifted everything in terms of not only world geopolitical domination, those unipolar powers that God allowed to run the world, unipolar versus multipolar, which is where we're headed in this next reset that we're in, where Duke talked about the prevailing AI technocratic, what we are warning about is really the whole framing of the Antichrist system. And we'll build that out, that this AI system is an Antichrist system. There's no way to understand it any other way unless you don't know your Bible, because it's framed in order to have absolute control over every living soul. And if that's true, it's pretending to be God. So a Christian can't be so naive as to not realize that we're watching the Antichrist system being built out. And so it's important for us to just know that. So the Egyptian Exodus, the Babylonian captivity was the kind of final Old Testament crisis motif. Babylon is your archetype running from the days of Nebuchadnezzar to the end of time. For those of you who keep up with me in the apocalypse, you have two major city kingdom paradigms at odds with each other, Babylon and who? Jerusalem. You got to know this. Babylon, Jerusalem are the antithesis in the apocalypse. They are the big city whores, our city bride, our city kingdom, our city people in the scriptures. And so Babylon became an archetypal code for the Roman Empire and Zionism. The Roman Empire and Zionism. You need to know this. You need to know, as I've taught for years, that the attributes and characteristics of the Babylonian system is the arrogation of itself to be the only true God, and everything else is its servant, and it shows up in power and in perversion and in persecution and in unbridled bestiality. That's the Babylonian system. So when you listen to the term Babylon in the scripture carefully, there are entrails that run out from the topic or term Babylon into theology, into sociology, into politics, into economics, into world domination. This is very important for you to get. That's why Revelation 17 and 18 are such a critical, overarching command for the people of God to come out of her, come out of her. I talked to our men yesterday morning about this when it has to do with the satanic system controlling the masses. What happens to God's people is they're brought out of the Babylonian system, first in the heart and the mind, and then over time in the life, and then ultimately, experientially, the Babylonian system will be destroyed. But we are in the midst of the Babylonian system as the Old Testament church was in the midst of Babylon during the captivity. Did that make sense? I need to keep going. And so that reset was something that Christ knew very thoroughly, for which he told his disciples before the 37 years expired and in AD 70 Jerusalem was destroyed. He said, look back to Daniel's day and understand what he meant when he says, when you see the abomination that maketh desolate standing in the holy place, realize you are already at the crux of the new world order of the first century. So he said, look back in order to see where you are and look forward. And we have to do that too, because our Bible is anachronistic. Our Bible has ended historically 2,000 years ago. So it has to be speaking to us in history code. And we have to leap the history into the present where we are. And fortunately, if we are careful enough at the terminology that you and I are susceptible to, even in our present culture, particularly the Western Hemisphere. I think it's the world, but certainly the Western Hemisphere. The advantage to being a Western nation is that largely God has in his sovereignty allowed the theocratic domination of the Roman paradigm to be favored in the Western Hemisphere. So we largely dominate the world narrative. And because we dominate the world narrative, the world has to basically use our terminology and use our ideology in order to engage the world at any significant level, intellectually, politically, socially, economically. Am I making sense? And this is the arrogance of the American Neo-Babylonian Roman Empire assertion that America acts just like Rome. And Rome acted just like Nebuchadnezzar. I built this with all my hands. We are the greatest nation in the world. We can do whatever we want. And we see now the beast emerging, even in our own political kingdom, to tell you and I that it doesn't believe in God, and therefore it does not believe in law. And I taught you that when we were in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. The marks of the Antichrist system is lawlessness, perversion, and destruction. You can mark that down. The marks of the Antichrist system is lawlessness, perversion, and destruction. So you're going to see that triad everywhere in the world where the Babylonian system prevails. Now your antithesis to that Babylonian system is the kingdom of God. And you can easily create the juxtapositional characteristics that we're dealing with now in 1 John. 1 John says, he that is practicing wickedness, ungodliness, is not of God. So if the system is operating in rebellion and disregard for God's Torah, for God's scripture, for the word of God, then we know it's an Antichrist system. And you can't tell me my leaders know God. You cannot tell me that. You can't tell me that. And everything that I have seen historically in the Babylonian paradigm is presently operating today. And everything that I've learned concerning the Roman Empire and their emperors is presently operating today because it's one spirit. That's what John is teaching you. John is coding us out for the eschaton. You understand 1 John well, and you get the eschaton. And so, you know, in that reset in the year AD 33 moving into AD 70, the disciples were warned about what was coming. And kind of like what we're dealing with now with us talking about this next big one. Let me go ahead on and make sure I'm working through. Yeah, so this next big one that's coming that we're dealing with, this seventh reset, the fall, the flood, Babylonian tower, Egypt, Babylonian captivity, the Roman Empire, that's 6. Now we're in the 7th one. Did you guys get that? We're in the 6th one is the Roman Empire. It fell in AD 70. It changed the world. It changed the world. I mean, Jesus came exactly like Daniel said in Daniel chapter 2, as that stone that was cut out without hands and crushed that whole synthetic composite and brought it down. From the gold to the silver to the bronze to the clay and the metal, it came down, and the kingdom of God began to spread throughout the world, notwithstanding all the tribulation that the kingdom of God has gone through, of which both Daniel and Jesus said will always accompany the kingdom until Christ comes. The kingdom will always be accompanied by tribulation. That's Daniel 9, that's Matthew 24, That's 1 Thessalonians 5. That's 2 Timothy chapter 3. You guys know I know these things. So I'm tossing them out because I really want them to be in your heart, because that's the word of God. And if you don't have the word of God in your heart, the shaking will move you. Because your master said, don't be moved by these things. So I understand trepidation. I understand worry and concern. We're not saying don't have worry and concern. Don't be like, even for you blessed few that are here in the room, there's probably 100 watching now. There'll be about 400 watching over the next couple of weeks because we upload this. But this here is a perfect example of how much people don't care about what's coming. But that was the same way in Jesus' day. That was the same way in Paul's days. This is why Paul dealt with the whole concept of being awake and asleep, which I taught you men on Friday, that the man that was possessed by the demon would sleep. And Christ had to wake him up out of that lethargy and absolute control and tyranny that he was under and tormented. And human beings are asleep, and they are so asleep that they are willing to live under the excruciating pain of a government that lies and gaslights and torments and takes. That is your Roman/Babylonian/Zionist system. This is why for most of us watching, we're seeing how it is definitely centering in the darker elements of control with this hybrid of American politics and Jewish politics. Well, because we're in the center of this eschaton. And what we have to do is know the difference between what it means to be a Christian and not. And Christ gave that to you when he died on the cross. He said, that is not who I am. This is who I am. So either you're going to side with power or you're going to side with the prince. Either going to side with power or you're going to side with the prince. This here is the paradoxical nature of what it means to be a lamb. Am I making sense? All right, because I want to make sure we get these, and then I want to do some kind of solution-oriented stuff I've talked about before, but I want to get it down for us. That's really good. So we are in the seventh reset, meaning the Roman Empire, obviously, when I say the Roman Empire we know collapsed in the 5th to 6th century AD, but what did not collapse was its esoteric mystery principles for governance, because that's part of the spirit of Antichrist. So the spirit of Antichrist has been in existence since mankind opened the door to let him in. And he's been building out his kingdom as Christ has been building out his kingdom since the fall of humanity. So those two kingdoms are constantly being built out. The Babylonian kingdom of a technocratic, pseudo-Christ governance over the world, and the kingdom of God, where the true and the living God is bringing men and women into a real salvation and transforming them into the image of his dear son. Those two categories are the big binaries that you have to be able to keep in mind in the fog of war. Because it's like a fog of war that a lot of people don't get. And mostly they don't get it because they don't study their Bibles and they don't take it to heart, which is a fallacy for all of us if we're not careful. And so we are in that seventh reset, and the powers that be right now at the highest levels of financial control, the banking industry is at the pinnacle of the whole pantheon and what we call pyramid of governance in the world. The financing system that Duke was just talking about is at the pinnacle of this. And that's why Jesus warned his people, do not become a lover of mammon. Use it, but don't love it. Because if you love it, that's your God. Because if the highest standard of existence for us is riches, then we're going to be just like all the other subjects in the world, little whores to these different wares that are in Vanity Fair as they make their way to hell. These little stands. There are infinite numbers of them for which people invest their whole life, and they are now all set up largely under the Unitarian concept of a Gramscian Marxian ideology of what is called singularity and therefore transhumanism. So those two words you need to keep in mind. So the goal is to take the many and turn them into the one. That is an inversion of the gospel. Because the one, Christ, takes the many and brings them into a unity with the one true and living God via him. So the satanic system is doing the same thing with the world, so that, as Revelation 17 says, and these gave their power to the beast for 1 hour. That is a season of radical persecutory prerequisite to a normalization of the crisis. So you heard Duke talking about that little area where the crisis is in the curve going down and the curve going back up. Y'all saw that, right? We have been in that for over 150 years. We've been in that destabilization era for 150 years. We've been in that since World War I, moving into World War II. And the world has changed radically since World War II with the Industrial Revolution and then the dot-com era, and now artificial intelligence flourishing up out of the internet era. Did that make sense? That's where we are, because there is a correlation between power, economics, and communication. Power, economics, and communication. I'm going to say it again. There is an inseparable correlation between power, economics, and communication. Power to possess the money to build out systems that communicate the propaganda necessary for people to be sold a worldview that is not true. But if they don't know it, that's all they have. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Santa Claus and evolution, and many other things that we bought into because we were not taught the truth. Okay, so remember now, communication is the key, and that is the fog of war that we're in now. And so what we're doing is trying to create lights as pathways to navigate this fog of war so that we can negotiate it. Like what Duke is talking about, I want to try to be done in about 10 minutes. What Duke is talking about that we're going to have to be able to prepare for is an artificially intelligent world that is going to dominate the modalities by which we function. You're not going to get away from it. I think I told you guys that last year. You're not going to get away from it, and you don't have to. You don't have to get away from it, but you do have to negotiate it. And that's what Christ meant when he says in the world, but not of it. So there's no escaping it except in a theoretical way, which I want to outline as kind of things we need to be doing as well. But I want grace to be able to hold such a broadly and grounded biblical worldview that nothing of the propaganda that we are forced to have to consume will shade or distort biblical truth having its access to your soul. Right, so when biblical truth has access to your soul, you filter everything that comes in. You filter it. You're not afraid of it, you just filter it. Right, parenthetical. Many of us know now what's coming out in the media concerning COVID and the errors and the misrepresentation of the data and the harm of the biodistribution of the spike protein all over. We've been knew this. The courts, the Congress is still trying to fight the evidence that is coming out. That's why I do the Monday show. I do the Monday show to let you know we're not losing the battle of truth. It's just that the gatekeepers, remember communication has gatekeepers, and their goal is to make you think you're losing the war. That's their goal, because remember, the devil is a liar. Now, if you don't hurry up and understand that with regards to all of the systems that are presented to you at no cost, which you know, my mama told me, you better look around, right? She let me know that nothing is free. They already charged me at the back door. So when they came to give it to me free, it was already paid for by me through taxes, which is the thing that has me upset and country spitting. I didn't hear her. Anyhow, did you need to tell me something? No, I said me too. Okay, yeah, spitting man. That's right. T from the country as well. And it's really because we're bankrolling our own destruction. Now, if you're a hardworking human being trying to make $1 out of 15 cents, this ought to be of concern to you. You at least ought to be interested in where your money is going, because the narrative dialogues and battles that are going on is around how the money is being used. It's not about who is giving the money. And the Lilliputians in Washington talk to you and I like they already own the money. So I'm back on my soapbox again. Propaganda is designed to deceive you into thinking something that is not true as a premise for you to act in a predictable way when they get past the faulty premise. The premise is faulty. They don't have any money. The money comes from us. The premise is faulty. The banking industry has no money. They make money out of thin air. And they use it as a currency system to bring us into debt slavery, and they force the relationship. And this is the last masterful precursor to the mark of the beast paradigm of Revelation chapter 13, and that is an inescapable slavery at the economic level if your life consists of the things which are material and temporal. See? And they do. And so we are concerned, aren't we? We are concerned with how to negotiate living out our divinely appointed time. You know, some of us only got 20, 30 years. Some of us only got 10. Others of us have longer. Compared to eternity, that's a vapor. It's a Weaver shuttle stroke. It's a mist. It's a short time, and then we're out of here. And the goal is to keep that part in mind as well, that as much as we are being told very tersely, Duke could have went into it much deeper on how to prioritize where you are at present so that you can sustain some level of autonomy around your resources until you die, which is what God calls us to do. We just have to know that this is not an eternal battle down here. This is a temporal battle. And you just got to fight it, but it's a temporal one. And the thing you want to do is be able to negotiate that battle well. Okay, let me go on because I could talk about a whole bunch of things. The first thing that I'm going to say for those of us that are a bit sensitive around the area of the banking system and our federal government and the feds. Interest rates are about to drop as a strategic ploy right now between now and March of 2026. You need to know that. Now, that's just a ploy, because if you know anything about quantitative tightening, quantitative easing, they use those techniques when they see that society is in trouble with the slowing down of the flow of currency. See, the flow of currency is how the game is run. So when there's enough currency in there, you can tighten up how much money you print. When there's not enough, then you can loosen up and you just start printing tons of money. Like a lot of people felt real good during COVID when they got them big old fat checks for free. Now remember, my mama told me, ain't nothing for free. So I didn't take a COVID check because I know how crooks are. They're going to come back to me 5 or 7 years later and say, Mr. Gistan, you took 3 of them COVID checks. Now, did you read the fine print? You owe taxes on that. And so what's happening now at the at the whole swap out of the old paradigm of economics, fiat currency, is moving into a total digital programmable currency system, of which Duke talked about, which will be attached to your holistic identity, Everything about you that you and I think about at the individual and categorical level of our federal government, our medical, our insurance, our finances, the company we work for, our educational system, they all look like they're individuated. They're all under the package of government control. Your government schools are government control, the whole thing. Now it's getting ready to be conveniently collapsed into digital holistics, digital control. And if artificial intelligence is able to exponentiate how to figure you out and clone you in total, because that's what we're talking about. And the cloning is not physical. The cloning is behavioral. The cloning is figuring out who you are, what your predilections are, what your bents are, what your needs are, what your wants are, so that you can have an avatar that's going to mediate between you and the Antichrist authoritarian control to make it easier for you to agree with yourself. Did that make sense? Do I need to say it again? I don't. But that's what the cloning is about. That's what the information gathering is about now. They are gathering the data on you and I because they want to create a better version of you and I artificially, so that that other version of you and I will more easily get us to comply with it, because it will have the ability to do things for us that we don't do for ourselves. Do not tell me this won't be a temptation. It already is. That's why many of our dear brothers and sisters are deeply entrenched into the metaverse as we speak. They're not even watching this program because they're too deeply trapped by other programs in the metaverse to even come out. This is called being asleep. That's what the Matrix was about. It's called being asleep. And so the Christian is going to have to be smarter than his neighbor by the wisdom of God and good teaching to navigate it. And so, again, I'm going to just state for the record, because people that have money will benefit from, and people who have goals around acquiring the legitimate assets that Duke was talking about, land, gold, silver, commodities that have the capacity to grow in value or sustain. All of those are very important. I mean, and we will be talking more deeply about this in the new year. Like, it's inevitable. You have to talk about this deeply, because this will be about crisis increasing and the need for us to be able to be real-time prepared to move in different directions, implementing different resources to sustain our lives. All right, that's what every crisis has had to do. For people to survive a crisis, they have had to have several things in play. And so, yeah, interest rates being dropped to about 3.5, maybe up to 3.75, will be a good opportunity for people who have money, if their money does not have the ability to grow, and then they can actually buy something that has stability in it, and a diversity of applications like land. Because if you get some land, even if it's a small portion of land, it's going to be a major battle for the government to take it from you. That's one of the last things they're going to do, because they're not really interested as much in your land as they are in you. Remember, this here is about transhumanism. That means getting control of your mind. But while you and I are still physical beings, we have to eat. So if you did have a portion of land, you're going to be awakened by good teaching to not just let that land sit there barren when you could grow food on it and do other things. Now we're going back to the neo-garden responsibility of mankind, because he was brought into the kingdom to work the land, was he not? God had already given him a provisio for survival, and God was there with him. So God was his protector. The Duke was talking about that set of categories around gold and silver, the different mechanisms and modalities by which you can acquire it, whether personal or somebody holding it for you. Well, what's holding my gold and silver is a 357 Magnum on one side and a Glock on the other side and an AR-15 in the backside. Right now, I might get a Rottweiler later. But I actually have a real hard time at present with somebody holding my gold and silver. Given that I just have a government that just lies to me to my face, flat out lies to me. My mama told me. And so my point is that why would I get into a system where I already know the government is basically telegraphing that if you put it in that hole, I'm taking that. As soon as we see how much is over there, we're confiscating that. Right, and so like even now, I am actually putting you guys in a kind of navigational framework of mine, which feels like a battle, because it is. It's a battle for survival, and it's a battle for autonomy. And you have every right to battle for autonomy and battle for survival. You have to under God. You don't get to just give up. Am I making sense? Although 80% of the planet are going to just give up. They're going to buy into the system. Now, I do kind of want to lay out these categories and say something else about it, but I'll wait for the new year because we're going to be doing this every month. And I don't know what Duke was talking about. I don't know. There's too much stuff coming down the pike for us not to come in and do detailed stuff, whether it's, through the private meetings and stuff that are going to get started up next month. With Jackie and others, which is all fine for me. I want the saints to be very informed and productive, and that does take dialogue at small levels and then at larger levels too. We got to talk about it. So here are some of the value systems that I think I want to make sure that we understand are essential for our life. I want to call these things that we need to guard, just like you guard your home, your possessions. The first thing that we want to guard is our heart. That's not a small issue. The enemy takes people at the heart level. That's where he takes them, at the heart level. The heart has to be guarded. Guard your heart, for out of it are all the issues of life. The second thing that you got to guard is your time. Guard your time. If you don't guard your time carefully, you're going to get stupid, because you don't have a vacuum for which there isn't something always tugging on you. There's something always tugging on you. You don't get to just go somewhere and be in a void where you can just rest. I would completely advocate that. If you could go, and I don't want it to be a machine. I want you going in a tube and then blanking out. That is the metaverse. But if you could go somewhere and rest for recuperation, regeneration, restoration, older people definitely need that. That actually is a mechanism in the time component that I'm talking about. Guard your time. That means measure your time and employ it in ways that actually preserve you. All right. And so this is going to be redundant, but that third one that's coming in is measure or guard your money, which is what we're talking about today. Guarding, again, is not just in a irrational, frantic, careless way. It's just figuring out what your assets are and what your capacity for acquiring assets are, and try to begin to employ at the micro level or the moderate level or the macro level diversification. You can do it in small measures. There are some people who don't do nothing. I know that's bad grammar, but I feel like that today. They don't do nothing because they talk themselves out of starting at the basic level. Did that make sense? I'm talking to my grandkids right now. As I'm talking to you, I'm talking to my grandkids. Because, and I said this before, I need to get off here, but I want you to get it. People who cared about me and my wife when we first had our first 3 kids, we were in our 20s, Rachel, Olivia, and Renee. I know half of them are listening right now.
So I got to get this right because they're women. And y'all know how the women go. They keep all the information straight. Daddy, you said, working hard, trying to take care of these babies. Somebody came to me and told me, you need to be smart about your money. And they taught me early on how to pay myself first. This is the class that we've had years ago when we started off with Primerica and Brother Romy Thomas. Y'all know that. Pay yourself first. That was a revolutionary idea that I thought was treason against the government. Think about that, Brother Mike. Pay yourself first. Every dime you make, besides giving to God, and I put the actual act of giving to God down the list, you take a portion of that and say, this is for my future, right now. And when you do that when you're 18 years old, and you make that a hard, inexorable principle, inextricable principle. There's two words I use all the time, inexorable and inextricable. Do you guys notice that? The two words go like this, just to help you. A thing that's inextricable can't be separated. A thing that's inexorable cannot fail. So when we say that we are inexorably tied to Christ, we are saying he will never fail us. And when we say we are inextricably tied to God, we are saying that it can never be broken. Nothing will separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus. So I have to give you theology right along with these practical things. Our joy is knowing God. But what is God doing? God is actually downloading all the time the data we need to stay connected to him in order to navigate this darkness. He's way ahead of AI. Am I making sense? We just got to listen to him. So I'm 24 years old, 25 years old, and I'm making like $250 a week. And my financial advisor says, take $25 out of that $250 and throw it into a black hole called the future. So I started doing that. At 25, I'm 65 now. That's 40 years later. So over time, because of the principle of what? Compound interest. I go from 1,000 to 5 to 50 to 100,000 to 200,000 to 500,000. That's not magic. That's mathematics. So when the kids are taught to start early and regimented, they'll look up at 40 and they can see the end game economically. But we also say to people who got lost in Wonderland and are coming out even in their 40s or 50s, you can actually look at 20 years from 40 to 50 and follow that pattern, but you're going to have to be a bit more aggressive with your root money. Have to be $100 a month. See what I'm saying? $100 a month, $1,200 a year, or $200 a month. And some of us can do $300 a month because actually your dollar is shrinking. It's only really worth about 30 cents. But my point here is that if you get the epiphany as I did, and I was broke, because I grew up in the hood. In the hood, not only are you poor, you po. The last two letters is gone. The devil took the O and the R. I'm just telling you the truth. It is what it is. And what Solomon said is the poverty of the poor is their destruction. That's a rhetorical, poetic expression that says the goal of the existential threat to the poor is to keep them ignorant. You want to keep people poor, keep them ignorant. And there are a lot of people poor in the gospel.
Now, here's the dirty little secret about it. Hurry up, Jess. There's a lot of people who have earned wealth properly, know that what I'm talking about is the only way it works. People who have worked hard for decades upon decades upon decades just know you got to prioritize the grind. You got to put that money away. You got to navigate mechanisms in your life, modalities and opportunities to build on that. You got to do it in a way that doesn't destroy you, turn you into, some kind of self-centered narcissist, but you still got to do it. You got to be diligent about your money. The diligent will bear rule. The slothful will be a slave. And so the goal of the government is to turn us all into slothful slaves and then lie to us about how much we have. So Trump running around talking about we're in the greatest economic swing we've ever been into. Okay. I heard that lie. Right, and that's designed not for you and me who are thinking. That's designed for the people who are not thinking. Every time you hear that man say something that's outrageously contradictory to reality, he's not talking to you that's thinking. He don't care nothing about you. He's only talking to the idiots and dimwits who are hoping in him being King Cyrus. Am I making sense? But that is the dialectical swing every political era. Biden was somebody's king. Obama was somebody's king. Bush was somebody's king. And that's why politics is the most diabolical system in the world. And you gotta be able to navigate through it. So, guard your heart, guard your time, guard your money, guard your health. Guard your health. Guard your health. This one young people don't pay no attention to. I pay no attention to health. I just ran. I just ran. I said, the Lord gave me good genes. I just ran. Now I'm walking. Now I'm walking. But I'm still walking. Guard your health because your health is constituent to your right choice making because your health is connected to your attitude, and your attitude is connected to your perseverance, and perseverance is a fruit of faith, particularly when faith is operating optimistically. When your faith is healthy, you will be disposed to proper teaching. When your faith is healthy, your ears are wide open to the truth of God. If it's not healthy, it's biased. Am I making sense? Yeah, this is the reason why we can't get church folk to hear the truth, because they're operating out of an unhealthy faith and they're biased. You were that way, remember? You were that way. And God's waking you up now, and what you're coming to understand is God has a whole lot to say about all this stuff if our faith is healthy enough to have a set of kind of parameters of availability to just hear him out. And then you go, man, the old people were way smarter than the generation I live in, because they were able to keep their house and keep some land. And listen, most of the food they grew, they could easily detect the corruptible food in the market and say, no, I don't want that. That's got all kind of nasty stuff in it, junk in it. And they lived a relatively healthy life until everything, became excessive. And we gotta get back to that paradigm of organic choice making for health. You already know that. The medical industry is fighting like hell to keep you governed by synthetics. That is moving into humanism at the transhumanistic level, to integrate our bodies with all of this technology, nanoparticle technology. There's going to be a gradual fusing of our humanity with artificial intelligence. It's not one fell swoop. This is not like they're going to create an avatar and then try to take your brain and put it in you. No, that you and I are already being infiltrated. One of the biggest psyops with COVID was nanoparticle technology being run into the body. And if you don't know anything about nanoparticle technology, you need to, because that is the subatomic world. That is the unseen world of machinery being able to get into our systems and begin to incrementally transform us while killing a large portion of us, either directly or slow kill. Am I making sense? Of course I am. And nanoparticle technology is in the air. So what do I have to do? I have to now think about the physiological battle of fighting for maintaining my health and recovering my health and protecting my health. Did that make sense? So now the health is holistic too, because it's not only physical, it's mental and emotional. And I've already told you, I need to stop. Don't hang out with crazy people. Did that make sense? Hurry up and figure out who is grounded and who is not. And unless God's giving you an assignment to minister to them, get back to self-preservation. And finally, but not least, relationships. This matter of our dealing with what's coming will be easily manageable, as painful as it may be, through relationship. The goal of the devil is always to separate, isolate. He does not like it when people come together. That's why in the COVID thing, they shut the churches down. Fellowship is the way you overcome the satanic system. Because in the fellowship, you just got bright people who are in every field of life. And when we begin setting up powwows, we can figure out how to navigate this thing. Y'all got that? Any questions? All right, come on, Duke. We're gonna knock this out.
You said there were 7. It's guard your heart, guard your time, guard your money, guard your health, and guard your relationship.
Yeah, that's what I said, and I don't know if that was 7 of those. How many is that? 6?
5, 6.
How many of the guard things did we do? Is that 5? That's all you need then. Is that it? That's all? Anybody else? Any questions? Yeah, that's all you need is 5. Those 5 will get you to glory. Go on.
Duke, I think you said that, well, you asked the question, what is stable coin? Or I'm asking the question, what is stable coins?
Stable coin. So stable coin
Hey, do
is.
closing prayer too.
Oh, okay. Will do. Stable coin is a cryptocurrency, right?
Okay, so it's not gold or silver.
No. So stablecoin was created after what you know of as our common cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, etc. Tons of cryptocurrencies out there. If you want to find meme coins, those are things in existence too. Stablecoin was created under government order, right, in an attempt to create some stability inside of that cryptocurrency space, right?
Is that a physical coin?
No, it's not a physical coin.
So it still puts you in the same
It's a crypto.
situation as not having nothing physically in your hands?
Yes, it's still a digital asset, right? It's a digital asset. And so the whole deal is it's pinned to the dollar, right? And so the idea is Bitcoin is like this. Stablecoin is going to be more so, you know, a consistent currency, non-volatile currency that's tagged to the dollar. So you would convert your Bitcoin into stablecoin and it would retain its value in a digital form, right? And so that's where it's like the whole thing with central banking digital currency is it's all digital, right? It's a whole new field where the bank is going to have your assets digitized and immediately things are going to switch over as far as like from the bank to the customer, to the organization that you're paying it to. Everything's just going to be super seamless, right? Same thing with like going from Bitcoin to stablecoin back to whatever assets you want in that digital realm, right? It's just, how do I explain this? It's a mean to retain your value inside of the digital.
No, I understand that. I get it. It just reminds me of like your RA. And what I mean by that is
Your
that
RA?
still, your I'm sorry. Yeah, yes, your IRA.
IRA, okay.
It still can be controlled by government. I mean, it's just something that is not, you paying into it, yes,
Yeah.
but at any point or any time that they want to take, they can.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, anytime something's online and you don't have it in your possession, it can be frozen, right? And the assets can be taken, right? And that's the fear of all this, where, you know, the concept of controlling what you buy and sell, and you can't or you can. If everything's digital, it's simply pressing off on your account, right? Off on you, right? Off on your power, off on whatever, you know, you own in this system. A good example of what it would look like as far as digital currency is those stimulus checks that we received during COVID, right? Typically we got them in paper form, right? They were mailed to your house. You got to take that check. You got to go to the bank, or you got to put it on, take a picture. Now it's, you know, digital currency. In the future, you'll have a number attached to you, and they will send you that check straight to your account, right? And they decide, hey, we don't want them to be able to use this account. The thing with digital currency is it can be manipulated based off an algorithm. You have to use this money within 2 months, otherwise it expires, right? They can do that. And so you have a ticker on that money, and it ticks down, and it's like, if you don't use it, it just goes away. What happened to my $200? Well, you were supposed to use it by X time, right? And so there's a higher system of control in the sense of, we want you to buy and sell when we want you to buy and sell. Why? To help move the economy along, right? But they don't want you to maintain that wealth. A perfect example of that is welfare, right? A lot of folks that I end up talking to, I'm like, hey, yeah, you can start now. You can start putting $100, $200. And they're like, man, I can't do that. I can only have $2,000 saved. I'm like, what are you talking about? You can only have $2,000. Well, I can't stay in this program if I have over $2,000 worth of assets. What? You can't own, if you want to stay in this housing program or you want to stay receiving these food benefits, you cannot have a store of value, right? And so it's like that, where it's like, don't want you to retain that value. And you can monitor people better when everything's digital. They don't have EBT cards, right? They don't have cash that they're trading for, right? Now it's boom. You are in the system. Hey, why do you have $2,000? Well, you're not going to be in this. Oh, no, please don't do that. Here's my money, so I can be in that program still. So.
Okay, thank you very much. So my takeaway is land.
Land?
It seemed like, to me, you have more control over your land than all of the digital coins and everything else that's being offered. Still push you in that program that they want you in.
Hey, if you got land, land is awesome because, again, it's the means of production.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. Land is special in that sense, but definitely physical is something you have, right? And so it's like land, physical, and then all the other things, you know, digital assets, et cetera. But it's good to have a variety, that diversification again, because when you're talking about investing, you have like a circle, right? And you have percents in the circle of where you can be, but there's 4 major categories or 4 major groups that you're gonna be in. It's like cash, right? And that's your liquid stuff. Then you got gold, and crypto is now a part of that, right? Those are gonna be hard metals, right? You have real estate, and then you have one more. What is the last one? Gold, cash, real estate. Shoot, it's eluding me right now. Well, the whole idea is when one is up, another one's gonna be down, right? Oh, equities or stocks, right? That's the last category. But if you have a whole bunch of gold, gold's up right now, that's great, right? What's down? Some of the equities are like bonds and things like that because the interest rates are going down, right? But at one point in time, gold was $2,000. It wasn't valued like it is today. But if you had stocks at that time, stocks are up. And so if you're balanced on that, you can benefit by being in different pools. Now, the biggest thing is to sustain your lifestyle. It's one of those things where you definitely want to have means of production, and you want to have physical assets just in case something does happen, right? And that's where those really come in handy. A lot of people right now are like, man, all my stuff is in crypto. I'm just 100% stock market. Why would you ever want physical anything? That's crazy. Well, that's a personal choice, but if something does come down, this again, if, it's always an if, because you might be doing fine right now, but you don't know what tomorrow brings, right? War doesn't happen, over a long stretch of time. Typically, it's really fast, right? Where you go from, talking about it to being in it, right? Where somebody did an attack on your coast or whatever, right? So in these war-torn nations and stuff, they go from eating food with their family and hanging out to destroyed house and whatever they find around their house that's valuable. And now they're going down the street trying to get some food from their government. It's that quick sometimes. Not saying that's going to be for us, just to let you guys know. I'm just saying, in that case, physical assets would have been great. But what if you were just all digital at that time? It's going to be a lot different. So, yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Oh. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you for sharing. I'm kind of curious why you zoned in on the highly volatile assets. Maybe you didn't have time to be more nuanced, and that's the question I'm going to ask. Is I believe in gold, but gold is over $4,000. Cryptocurrency went from 1,000 all the way up to 50.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd start out there talking about that, and so I'm kind of, it's much more nuanced because I wouldn't buy gold now at this price. I don't buy cryptocurrency because it's highly, highly speculative.
Sure.
So I just kind of want your opinion on the more nuanced issues that I just brought up.
Absolutely. So why do I talk through gold and why crypto? I also would want to know what do you, if you want to bring it up, what do you invest in right now? Because that's what it really comes down to. But go ahead, yeah, if you want to. No, nothing in particular? You're not like, I go all this, right?
Could you repeat the question?
As far as investing, right? You said you don't invest in gold right now because it's very high, right? And then as far as crypto, it is very speculative, volatile. You're correct. What do you invest in right now? What is that safer side that you would say, this is what I would talk about?
It would have been much better to invest it in gold and cryptocurrency 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now, I look at things, am I willing to lose that amount of money? Crypto. You're in one of these, I forget what you call it, where they hold your crypto. Well, some of them have gone under and you've lost everything. You lose your key, you lose everything.
Yep.
Equities, to me, is the standard. You have equities, you have cash. We like to have cash for the next 3 years. We're considering maybe the stock market is going to crash, and kind of just live below your means, et cetera. So
absolutely.
But I believe in gold and silver. Cryptocurrency, I just think it's too volatile.
Okay. Awesome.
And so.
Yeah, no, I love that answer because it really lets me get into the specifics, right? So you are a specific individual person. For you, crypto is way too volatile, right? Gold is it's too high right now. I would say, it's $4,000 where it was $2,000 not but like 5 years ago. So this really gets into the specifics of investing, and that's why I'm talking in generalities, right? My word here is diversification, right? Diversification. You want to be across that span. It's different for everybody. Everybody has a different circle as far as like what that's divided into. Those 4 assets where it's like some people do all real estate. That's why I asked you the question, like, so what do you invest in? What feels comfortable to you, right? That gets into risk. You seem to be on the more cautious side of the house. Some people are like, hey man, all crypto, let's go. That's 100% risk right there, because they're not afraid of their money just going down to zero. There is no right answer as far as like, hey, what should I be invested in, what should I not? It's really what can you handle as far as the speculation. Because the thing with gold and crypto right now is this: there is potential upside. What they're talking about, right, again, this is just through YouTube videos and reading online and stuff, is at $4,000 right now. It's like $4,198 today. The possibility is 10,000. Whoa. Now, is gold too high now? But again, 5 years ago it was at 2,000. No way can it get up to 10,000, but it can. Same thing with crypto, right? High risk, high reward. High risk, high reward. And so if you can tolerate being in something like that, because crypto was at 120, right now it's at 80,000. Somebody can spot check me on that. But we're in a bearish cycle for crypto. It went down a lot. So some of the people that were bullish or really wanting this decided, hey, you know what? I'm gonna draw back or I'm gonna cash out. And so now it's at 80,000. It was 120,000 just a little while ago, right? So you're right, super speculative, super volatility. The thing is, you want to be well-rounded, diversified, and it's gonna be different for every single person depending on your level of risk tolerance. Now with equities and stock, right? I'm in that field, right? I'm not pushing anything, right? I don't wanna push anything. The whole deal is, what you'll hear on TV is always about stock, is always about stock, is always about being involved in the market, right? Not even cash position, right? They're like, why do you have cash? You should be putting it in something. You should be making your money grow. The whole thing is control. That's why I'm talking about that, right? Do you physically have your equities? You don't, right? You're being told you have ownership of a company. That's what equity is. Ownership of a company or a house, equity in the thing. And these systems have worked for a long, long time, and they continue to work. I do help people with that. It has been stable, but that may not always be the case. And that's it, where it's like, I wish I could tell everybody that I ever encounter, your portfolio is gonna be great. For the next 18 years, it's gonna be doing fantastic. But the truth of the matter is, for the last 20 years, it's been doing great. We haven't had a large correction. This year it was April, right? Negative 15%. People lost their minds, took out of the market, right? But what if it's a 50%er? What if it's a Great Depression style, right? Oh no, you're good. What if it's the Great Depression style where it goes down 50%? And you're like, well, equities weren't supposed to be volatile. They weren't supposed to be like this. It wasn't supposed to be this big risk. It's a possibility. And that's the thing about investing. It's always about risk, reward. The more speculative, the higher the reward, right? The less speculative, like if you go down to bonds, that's like, right now it's 3.8% as far as interest rate you're gonna get. So for a year, if you have $100,000, you're gonna get $3,000 on that, right? But that's super low risk. It's pretty much backed by the government. Not a lot of reward coming out of that. That just keeps up with inflation, right? But if you're involved in equities and you're in something like NVIDIA, Amazon, Google, that still has a lot of risk, and we just don't think so because we think these companies won't fail. Now, what if they did, right? Or we go through an economic cycle of, all these just shoot down for whatever reason. It's possible, but definitely they are more speculative as far as gold and crypto are concerned. But it really just comes down to what your level of risk tolerance is, what you're willing to handle, right? Because somebody in here is like, hey, I'm all in crypto. Or I deal with options, right, which is on the riskier side. Or I deal in futures, right? And that's where it's like, well, that's getting down in the weeds, right? But you have to know you. And if you haven't ever done a risk assessment to understand like, hey, this is how I should be invested, because it's a very individualized thing. I can't say everybody here should be 25, 25, 25, 25. That's not the case, right? You have different goals, wants, wishes. If you need to make money more aggressively, well, you have to do more aggressive investing. If you have enough money to sustain yourself, well, now you're in preservation of your principal. You just want to hold on to your money. So that's that spectrum where today we're just talking about diversification because people don't hear anything about gold, anything about crypto. They don't understand it. And we want to make sure that everybody's understanding everything that's happening around them. But definitely invest in the market. It's another thing that's definitely beneficial. So.
That's what I wanted is for you to be able to just show that, sorry for people, that there are risks. And I was wondering why you didn't at least mention, that's my concern.
Oh, no,
is that
for sure.
people need, especially the body, the church body. I would never start, saying crypto. So
for
thank
sure.
you.
No, I appreciate that. It's probably my bad habit of like, the first one I did talk about risk very heavily, right? And I don't talk about it every time because limited on time, right? There's so much to unpack, but definitely, if I'm ever talking again, I'm not giving investment advice today. So if you're hearing me, we'll have a one-on-one conversation about investment advice. That's why when you come on these stages and it's like a large group of people, it's not investment advice. It's just general guidelines of what you can do, what you can't do. But definitely got to talk through risk individually because it's different for everybody. Not everybody can handle all gold or crypto. So, yeah.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming out. This is great. Just tagging on precious metals. Is it your opinion that the government will revalue gold? Is the first question.
Oh, yeah.
Second question is, silver is 58. It took a spike this week.
Yeah.
And gold, hey, it's very expensive. And then if I could ask three questions. Can you talk about Japan? Japan just recently said they're going to turn on the printing machines. They're going to dump the U.S. debt and how that will change what's happening with America globally as far as interest rates are concerned.
Okay.
Sorry for overloading.
No. So first and foremost, what was question one with gold? Reevaluation. My opinion on reevaluation of the gold. So I'll start saying 1929 depression to 1933. Reevaluation of gold did happen then, right? When it was collected back from the people, it was like paid the people like $25 for gold, and then reevaluated at $30-something. So I would say it's it's possible. Right, it's definitely possible. What we see right now is a lot of the larger institutions are taking in a lot of gold, right? And that's what's bringing that gold price up. And I did just mention, right now it's at 4,000. Talking heads are saying it could be at 10,000, right? And using gold to evaluate what the dollar's price and it's a very possible, thing, right? Again, I don't want to take a position on it because people are listening and they're like, well, I should do gold because he said he's going to do gold, right? Now you can definitely tune into some of the YouTube videos and people will say what they're positioned on. I have a job that's around this. No, it's all good. I'm not, I'm staying above board on everything, but I don't want to, necessarily weigh in on that. I definitely like gold myself, though. I do, and I do think it's there's a possibility of reevaluation around gold. As far as silver is concerned, it was like, you saw my thing up there for 50-50, right? It was $50.50. It's now at 58, like you're saying. The interesting thing about silver is it's being looked at as still undervalued, right? Still undervalued, and it's like, well, why? Because silver is always compared to gold, and there's a certain ratio that hasn't been hit, so they're thinking that silver prices are going to be higher as well on that. And then Japan. Everybody is switching back to, I can't speak on it specifically, but I know around the world, folks are getting off the dollar right? Getting off of our treasury bonds, right? And going into gold, right? Trying to reestablish themselves. They're preparing, and it's one of those things where that's why I'm talking like this, having these conversations. I probably need to look more into Japan and see what exactly they're doing before I just run my mouth on it. But definitely silver is another metal, that's why it was up there, that you can look into. The reason why people go with gold over silver is gold is one of those metals that doesn't tarnish, that doesn't rust, right? Silver, you have to hold it in a different fashion. You have to manage it different, and you have to have a lot more of it, right? You saw that one coin of gold was 4,000. A larger piece of silver is $50, and so in order to get there, you need like 20. It's like, man, you have to have a lot of silver, and so you have to store it, right? A big chest of silver coins for about $20,000. That's a lot harder than, this for gold, right? And so that's why with silver, it's like, well, where are you going to store it? But I think it's a good investment as well, right? And especially like if you're talking trading and bartering. Did I miss something?
It's a commercial product as well. They use it commercially.
That too.
But I think it's undervalued.
Yeah, they're saying that it's undervalued for that purposes too. Like in our computer chips and stuff, they're using silver a lot more, and so the value should be higher, but they're artificially deflating it.
Yes.
But again, I don't know. Like it's like yes, so silver is used a lot more than gold in just commercial products, and they need silver prices to be low to be used on these semiconductors, on these chips,
solar panels.
Yeah, solar panels, and so right now it is potentially undervalued, right? And so, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
No, thank you. These are awesome questions. What you got, PJ?
Yeah, in terms of what SC was saying about the gold is not going to devalue significantly, even if we move more fully into the artificial intelligence paradigm shift, because gold is universal. So one of the things we've got to be careful to watch for is a move from the present attempt on the part of Western powers to maintain a unipolarity of authority. See, we are unipolar authority right now, but the nations are pushing against us. And there's a very good likelihood that we will break up into a multipolar world, multiple world power in a much more substantial way. We've been running this thing for, again, 150 years. What that meant is that we forced the dollar to be the number one currency, and we could dictate the value of things predicated upon the convenience and actually debt trap of the dollar system. We've made our money by thuggery. That's a whole nother conversation. But it's simply foisting contracts on people and being able to confiscate the interest or take the land. We've been doing that for a long time. That's what war is about. I don't know who I was talking to. A couple young men on Wednesday. I was talking to a couple young men who are these are young men pursuing a theologian's degree, but they're completely ignorant of economics. And I'm like, you guys, you can't teach scripture without understanding economics deeply, because economics is that secondary or penultimate God that actually frames the control of relationships around the world. That's why Jesus talked about it a lot. Do not become a slave to mammon. But whenever you do become a slave to mammon, you will become a kind of despot, because so many people need the money. So now you can act like God because people are slaves. I taught you guys this about 4 months ago concerning Joseph. I told you that Joseph was a type and pattern of Christ, but his model of economic governance became an inversion of the gospel for the satanic system. Remember, there was a famine in Israel, and not in Israel, but in Egypt. And therefore, they had to do something about the famine, and what he did was guesstimate for 7 years, stored up all the wealth, and everybody had to come to him. And that's what governments have done, particularly the American government. So if they can create famines, if they can create devastations, then you're forced to have to deal with them. But we're moving into a multipolar system, and it's going to happen, even if it means a third world war, because nations no longer want to deal with the United States. This is a relationship thing. You know, some relationships are forced, and other relationships are mutual. And we're losing that battle on many fronts right now. So I would simply say that I would definitely try to hold on to gold and not worry about it depreciating any significant amount. I think it's high now only because of the way things are, but it should go back down to a relatively purchasable price in the future. You should definitely get silver. See, he can't say it like I can say it because I don't work with it. But you should definitely get silver as well because it's such a functional and diverse metal, okay? It's not gonna go anywhere anytime soon, and we will be bartering with silver again, trying to balance off this AI system of currency. So definitely, I definitely would do that, but just recognize that this is about money is a war. This is a war. Economics is a war. We're in that war now and have been in it for a long time. So the stock market tells on us what's going on here and around the world. You're gathering the money so that you can just have a way to manage this chaos. And then once the chaos settles down and we look at the landscape and see what the new landscape is, then we modify accordingly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an awesome point. As the landscape changes, our strategy changes. She's first, and then we got you. Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm one of those people that don't understand the crypto and all of that. I wanted to stay away from that. To me, it was like intimidating. So if you want to get into something like that, what is the best way to get into it? Because there's a lot of fraud out there. Just with that, but even with second on the gold, how do you know if it's real? Because once again, there's a lot of fraud out there.
So
This is where relationship comes in.
yeah.
This is relationship.
Yeah.
For my sister, this is relationship. I want to start at the bottom and then Duke can talk more particularly. Everything is about relationship. So imagine that we're not good at relationships. And because there are so many facets of life that we are obligated to participate in, we have to get information about those things. And because we're living in a world, and it's always been that way, where people lie to you and take advantage of you, either you got to learn it directly yourself, which is not a bad thing, but at a certain age, you know, and at a certain point, you have to trust people. Systems work on trust. And so you find people in your space that you can trust that will give you the proper information on something that you're about to commit to. You have to do it that way. There is no other way to do it, particularly if you don't have time to learn it. And the crypto thing, most people don't know. Duke will tell you that. I wish I had time, because his list is great. There was an area in your PowerPoint that was addressing the whole financial thing and the modes of gold purchasing, the modes of crypto purchasing, all that.
Yeah, I think Chenche is on it, but yeah. It's towards the end.
What that whole system was about for what's going on in the world right now, that's for the wealthy people. The wealthy people are playing those games right there. Those are, in every category, there is a slot machine in the casino gambling arena. Metaphorically, I need you to see that. That's not for you and me right now. You would have to have a mediator between you and that system to get you comfortable enough to invest in one of those slot machines. And if you know how addicted people are to casino gambling, each one of those slot machines are weighted. and controlled. I talked to my young men about that. Just like our voting machines are weighted and controlled. There is nothing going on in the world by which the people controlling that mechanism don't have the advantage. So you are in a good faith paradigm to have to invest in people saying this will protect you, you can put this on a USB drive, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that will work for people who are in the club where it's to their advantage to be playing these different slot machines. I can tell you that now. For the poor person, these are very, very ominous choices. So you are not being at all, you're not being diminished at all in the sense in which you're worried. You need to be. Because they allow poor people to get in on these slot machine paradigms in order to confiscate their wealth and push that money up to the top for them to continue to build their low liability wealth increase models because they're in control of the mechanisms. But the idea is good, and that's the thing that Duke could talk about in terms of what is crypto. Crypto, philosophically, is the ability for you to manage your wealth and resources in a hidden way in which the government can't track you. I love it. I just know that the government is interested in getting in on that game too. And most people have been trained to trust their government. Until you become a bona fide organized crime syndicate for yourself, which is what government is, you're fighting against powers. And this is why you need God on your side. He's your friend. But we need him at the level of how he downloads through people to help us understand these things and make right choices.
Yeah. Add on to it. Yeah, so I mean, in that vein of trust, you being here today, having this conversation, or me talking, there's a certain level of understanding that was increased, right? Where you're more comfortable asking the questions, and maybe there were certain questions that you didn't know how to ask. Now they're there. Now, that being said, as far as crypto, getting into that space, it is one of those things where you want to understand it. And what I'll tell anybody that's going into a new space is you don't go all in, right? It becomes gambling, right? I've never said, oh yeah, you gotta do this particular thing. It's always about diversification. If you don't take anything away from whatever I say every day, or I mean, every time I've been up here, it's diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? It doesn't matter how you're diversified, just make sure it's not all in one thing. Right? There's risk associated with everything, right? So just know that, like our brother was saying, I won't say his name, but it's a riskier investment, right? And so no matter what you do, if you put it into crypto right now, it's not a stable environment yet. Like, we're not on the top of that curve. Crypto will be normative eventually, right? It'll be normal. It'll be like equities eventually. But right now, it's like at the beginning of it, kind of like, let me think. The stock markets when they first started, right? It's like, it wasn't normal, right? It was like, what, you're owning part of the company? What? Like, how does that work? Like, it didn't make sense to people, but now it's like, yeah, equity is a partial ownership of the company. You can have it in fractions or you can have it in wholes, right?
Same thing with IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401ks. What the government got people to do is trust in the future. Trust in the future. So you're trusting in stability. And so, you're working for a company and they're saying, invest here, invest there, invest there. Same thing. You're not aware of how that company is functioning. You don't know the commodities. You don't know the different vehicles or devices. You're trusting your company. And they're telling you, just let it ride for 30 years and you'll come out well. In some cases, yes. In a lot of cases, no. Around the world, people have been devastated. And we are seeing that happening even right now in our own country. But it just simply is the fact that on a sociological level, human beings cannot do all the work themselves to minimize the risk. You have to simply trust people. But there's always a risk factor.
Yeah.
My other question is, what about other metals and and like
Yeah.
diamonds and stuff like that.
So they have other metals. There's palladium, there's titanium, silver. There's again, they're all investment classes. Like you can invest in them, but it's like, do you understand that metal, right? Do you understand why that metal will have value, or why you think that metal is going to go up in value or retain value, right? The most common one is gold, right? Because it retains the value. It doesn't rust. You can store it in a hole, and time. It's been the thing that's been used the most in history, right? And so that's why gold's there. And then you have silver right underneath that, but then like titanium is industrial use, right? Palladium, industrial use as well. So all of them are worth investigating, but I can't sit here and say I definitely know about that metal. But that's, again, where the trust comes in. If you go into a physical coin shop, they'll educate you on it, right? And then to just verify, trust but verify, you can always go online and check out the spot price of these metals, right? To make sure that they're being honest, because some dealers will not be honest, right? They'll overcharge you. Like what I was talking about, commemorative coins and stuff, right? This is a special coin. It's $100, $200 more than what you were gonna pay for a regular, maple leaf ounce of gold, right? It's not necessary. So it is like, who do you trust to buy these things, right? Who do you trust to inform you on these things? Some brothers and sisters around here, I can just help with information, right? But yeah, it is definitely a level of like, do you trust the dealer you're working with, or the online site that you're working with? That becomes a lot more, risky, right? But again, if you watch the gold presentation with Tucker Carlson and this gold wholesaler, they mentioned, I think, 2, right? Good gold wholesalers. Yeah. I haven't really verified it, but I did go check the prices, and I was like, oh, these prices are a little bit cheaper than my local gold wholesaler, right? But my local gold wholesaler, I can ask them questions. I know I can exchange this one for one, and so it's how you want to do it. But hopefully that answered the question. Yeah. Tanshea? Oh, mic lady's not on the mic.
Can't hear you. I had to turn my own mic on. So I was wondering, in terms of silver, how you said that it is undervalued, even though it has a lot of industrial use.
Yeah.
I was wondering, could it be because is silver more available than gold? Would that, or is that simplifying it too much? Could it be?
I would say it's simplifying it a little too much, right? In the sense of it is available, but they still mine for it, right? And it's also dependent upon the rate of use. As we kind of talked about, it's an industrial metal where they're using it a lot more now. And so it's one of those things where it's the rate of use and the amount of production, or the amount in production, are they equal right now? Or is the rate of use higher than the amount in production and the amount in existence right now? Because what that will do is it'll drive that price up, right? And so it's like, are all the facts and the figures put into the system that let us know what the rate of use is, right? And that's where that undervaluing can come about, where it's like, well, we just don't have all the data yet, right?
Okay,
so again, it's being called undervalued, and then typically gold and silver are correlated, right? Where gold is, I forgot what the ratio is, and so don't hold me on it, but gold is a particular ratio, and where silver needs to be like right behind it. So as gold goes up, silver should be going up. So where they're not, it's like either gold is overpriced or silver is underpriced, or yeah, that's it. So gold is either overpriced or silver is underpriced in that situation. So yeah. No
You gotta always think about the functionality. It's not just the value of it, but the functionality of it. The other category I'm just gonna toss in, if you're gonna be thinking about, gold assets or mineral assets or gems, your Bible is impeccably right about this. Impeccably right. So when we're talking about minerals and gems, and we're talking about diamonds and rubies and things of this nature, your Bible is impeccably right about that. it's a matter of understanding what is the usefulness of those particular stones and gems and minerals. What is the usefulness? And the Bible would tell us is that they have perpetual usefulness as long as the world exists. It's just whether or not the systems in the world need them. And because the systems change, then obviously the rate of necessity for these minerals are going to change as well. But they're never going to be eradicated, because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So you need to kind of keep that in mind. Like my sister, if you run across a bag full of diamonds and pearls and rubies, where somebody just dropped them and they left them there and divine providence left it for you, pick that bag up and take it home, okay? And just store it there. I promise you it'll come back into vogue at some point down the line. That's the way you need to think about it too, biblically. Need to be biblical about this. Don't just get technical and secular. Get biblical about this. God knows how to turn things around, move us in different directions where the resources that he has in the earth will become relevant to us. This is what that's about. Treasures are hidden. Treasures are hidden for a reason. All right, we got to wind this up.
That's good, PJ. Can I just piggyback? This is me. The secular and the biblical. The struggle of when you are aware that some of the equities, minerals, chips are being used for things that are not of Christ, but those are the things that we should, well, let me not say we should be, that will bring in a great return on investment. How do we deal with that?
You brought this up last time. I love this about you. I love this about your mom.
Yeah.
She
It's a
brought this up
struggle.
last.
It's a
This is so
struggle.
dope. She brought this up last time. She really did. Now this is where we need grace. We're gonna shut this down here, and I do mean that we need grace, because a lot of stuff is tied to immorality. So investing in certain things in the market is going to be, by association, sinful. This is what we need to be definitely careful about. I remember my upline taught me this years ago. He really did, and he was a wealthy man too. But he taught me you need to be careful about the market because it promotes immorality. So like if you're investing in emeralds and gems and resources, metals, well, we know these are the consequences of the loss of hundreds of thousands of African lives who are getting paid nothing to go into the mines to excavate these things, bring these things out. And therefore we're complicit in the immorality of it if we're trying to get rich on the back of the starvation and destruction of our fellow mankind. This is a big problem for me. Huge. I'd rather go dig my own. I'd rather get my own pick and shovel and find somewhere in the earth and dig out the gold for myself than to kill my African or my Latina or my Asian brethren who are barely scraping by to bring this into the Western market, which largely is for the benefit of the super wealthy. And this is biblical. We see this in the Bible. Slavery is there to make others rich. So we need to be careful about that. Very good. Thank you for that, because we're in a presentation period at Grace where purification is the concept, and purification is clarity on what is right and wrong, and asking God to give us grace to stay away from the putrid, from the unclean, from the sinful, from the immoral, from the rebellious, and that's what it means to not love the world. Very important. Thank you, sis. Are you good?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna close this in prayer.
Oh, you pray? Okay.
Yeah,
Amen.
because I got my group over there. We're ready to go to work. Father, thank you for your mercy and your goodness. This is a great class. And we are thankful for everybody that's starting to emerge with hunger and thirst for what it means to survive in this world presently and going forward. And we're asking for more wisdom, more insight, more conversations, more groups getting together, working these things out. Help us to be humble and wise and prudent about our finances
And we're praying this in Jesus' name, amen.